Welcome back, fellow American Horror Story fans, for one of our final two episodes of my Roanoke Nightmare on the Creep, courtesy of Monkey Caviar and our most infamous and wonderful host, Tiny. I am your most infamous host, and with me, as always, my wonderful co-host, Miss Melody Patton. The Elvis Man and Miss Melody are going to be discussing this very, very interesting episode that we partook in last night. As we all know, that my Roanoke Nightmare has been a very, very interesting new twist as far as Ryan Murphy's saga of American Horror Story goes. It hasn't been at all what we've been used to. There's a lot of people out there, including myself, that are really still quite upset about the lack of episodes. There's also the lack of airtime. But you got to hand it to them. Usually when it comes right down to the last two episodes, we usually do get entertained as well as we possibly could. So let's go ahead and kick it off. We actually open up with this wonderful little trio of hikers rocking like spelunking gear and helmets, and they're walking through the woods, and they're actually talking about how they're going to find the My Roanoke Nightmare house, the farmhouse. So we've got ourselves a batch of ghost hunters or just fact seekers or just true fans that are really just trying to get the scoop. And
well, actually, what they are, Elvis, these are three people. Their names are Todd, Milo, and there's Sophie, who is Thaisa Farmiga's character. They're from Virginia. They run an Instagram and an online blog and website called The Army of Roanoke. And they are trying to document what really happened. They're just exploring right now, and they're going around collecting evidence, and they just wanted to go to this historic site because they think that maybe it would give them more followers on Instagram and on their webpage. And Thaisa, she really, and if we, I'm sorry to pause so early, let's pause the thing because I actually wrote some notes right here. We haven't seen Thaisa Farmiga in quite a while. We haven't seen her since Coven.
Yeah, since Coven.
And she's everybody's sweetheart. Everyone loves her. So she's playing Sophie right now, and she is her and Todd and Milo, they are, running this website. So they're out there trying to get more hits for their blog. And she is reflecting, they're talking about season 1, which we watched as My Roanoke Nightmare as opposed to 3 Days in Hell. And she said, you know what I like about season 1? And she's very opinionated and she's very worldly. And I love this about her character as of now. She said season 1 was an interracial story set in a post-racial world, which of course is a lie because, it's a lie. Sorry, you guys. And then she went on to say colonization of America, where the butcher is a matriarch in a patriarchal society, which I never thought to think about this episode. Like, yes, the butcher was in power, but back then, during the colonization of America, you didn't have female role models. You didn't have the female being in the lead. And that is kind of maybe her drive to document the history of the butcher and Roanoke and what went on with My Roanoke Nightmare. And I thought that was a really, different way to think about the first season. And they're like, her friends, Todd and Milo, they went on to say, well, geez, I thought it was just a scary story. And she went on to say, well, yeah, it was a scary story because racism is scary and the patriarchy is scary. And you can tell she's very worldly and very, like pro-feminist. And that's how they're developing Thaisa Farmiga's character thus far. And I thought that was refreshing and, really neat how they could cram so much character development for one of our most beloved actresses into two minutes, maybe 2 minutes.
Let's start back up again. But anyways, we see them going through the Roanoke woods, and they're scouring the area because they're basically looking for the Roanoke house. they come across the big tree that we see in like episode 2, where Lee's daughter, Flora, her hoodie or scarf or whatever the hell that thing she was wearing is like caught up at the top of the tree that's
Sweater?
like 70 feet tall. The sweater, yeah. And they're like, okay, cool. And they all of a sudden they see this lady kind of like limping and like with wounds on her shoulders or something, kind of wandering out. She's like, where am I? What am I doing here? And she starts walking away. And Thaisa Farmiga, Sophie, she starts giving chase. She's like, what? Stop running away. And
yeah, she's worried about this person. She sees that obviously she's hurt. She wants to help her. Why would you run away from help? It's a little weird.
Well, she's very confused, and at this point, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and they actually do catch up with her, and then she starts booking again, and then they go to try to catch up with her yet again, and we hear her say something about her car, and that's when we're thinking to ourselves, okay, the last person that we had some kind of weird instance like this with was Diana, who was the assistant of Sydney, and then we actually see Sophie and her, spelunking looking crew or ghost hunters, wherever they are. They come to this clearing where they actually come across Diana's car, which is upside down. And Thaisa looks in and she screams and backs off. And that's when one of the other camera dudes, Milo or Milo, or the hell his name is, he comes in and actually scoops the camera in, and that's where they see the picture of this dead woman in the car. And they're like, oh my God, is that the same girl? So already they're wondering, like, how is there a dead lady in this car when we were literally just following her through the woods? So we come back to the house after our quick little, intro American Horror Story deal, and we see Wes Bentley as Dylan, who was playing Mr. Pig Monster at the end of the last episode, who is also Ambrose, which is Thomason's son from the My Roanoke Nightmare deal. This is really starting to get really fucking confusing. But he shows up because exactly as I prophesized, he was hired by Sydney to come at a certain time to basically stir shit up. He's like, I got here by Uber. And here's where it's a funny camera angle where we see him dressed up in the full pig outfit. And the same guy who was driving Cricket earlier on as the Uber driver is the same driver who is driving Dylan dressed up in the pig outfit to the house. So I think that's interesting. And Dylan is basically asking all these questions like, what's going on, yada, 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 playing it cool.
He asked Lee if that's an earpiece on her head because he doesn't realize that this whole thing at this point is actually real. And Audrey and Lee, the real Audrey, are saying it's not real, it's not a joke, this isn't a prosthetic piece, my ear is gone. And he is slowly going throughout the house looking at the corpses. There's Shelby's corpse still in the bathroom. He's looking at that, and Lee and Audrey, they're both very solemn. So slowly he's starting to realize that maybe, yes, they are in danger, and absolutely everyone is dead, including Sydney.
Dominic's hanging up there after he got attacked by the pig monster, and he's all sliced up, and Dylan is basically assessing the situation. And he starts talking about how he had this like insane military background, how he was like SEAL Team 10 and, carrying dudes out and being chased by cats.
His extensive military background. I mean, if you're Navy SEAL, that's no joke.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking badass. You gotta be
bionic. That's like the most badass.
So we're talking about how they're going to try and have to look for some kind of means to get out of this place. And he's talking about how he's not going to leave anybody behind, and he's planning on going out there and finding anybody who might still be alive to try and pull them out of this situation. And Audrey and Lee really are basically saying, you are insane, let's not separate. And this is kind of strange.
He doesn't realize the extent of danger they're in. He has just arrived, and they're like, no, you're not going by yourself. We have to stick together. We have to.
Did anybody besides me actually notice that the arm rail on the staircase rattled as he was talking, and the scene cut to Thaisa Farmiga being interrogated by police officers?
Oh, it was scratched up too. Did you notice that?
It was scratched up, but it was also like wobbly or something. I don't know why they did that.
Do you know why that is? Do you know why that is? Do you remember last episode, and I've actually paused for us, But last episode, when they were being chased by the Chens, and the younger Chen girl, she had a couple of them trapped on the stairs, and she was reaching through the stairs and over the stairs trying to get to them. And I think that staircase, well, the banister was scratched up because of the encounter with little Chen girl.
Yeah, the one that was kind of like something out of The Grudge.
Like Grudge, The Ring, Ringu. Oh,
but so as we get back to it, we actually see these guys that were hiking and Taissa Farmiga, Sophie, being interrogated by this police officer, and how the fact that they had called the cops and they came out there, and this TV show My Roanoke Nightmare has caused such a stir around the local police PD because people call them up for ridiculous nonsense and there's really nothing out there. They end up showing up and they check this car crash scene where they found the dead lady and the body wasn't even in there.
And you gotta also remember that the police station they know what's going on with the Polks and with the butcher, and they choose to ignore it. So why? But Taissa, Sophie, and Milo and Todd, they don't know this, so they're asking for help and they're getting ignored. But they know what's going on. The cops know what's going on, which is really sad. And they're actually interrogating either Todd or Milo. And he said, "Well, that's the thing about horror movies. The cops don't believe you until it's too late." I don't want to say it's foreshadowing, but that's a little bit of foreshadowing. And this guy, I'm not sure if it's Todd or Milo. They really didn't go into a whole lot of character development between the two of them.
They haven't at all this season.
Between anybody this season. Well, I mean, throughout the season, there's been a little bit of character development between Lee and Shelby and Monet, the ones that are left. I mean, we can tell who's who by this point. But I love how he's going into horror movies, and he's talking about Dawn of the Dead, and he's talking about the ghost or the girl that they saw out in the woods that later they saw in the car, which was Diana, which was Sydney's assistant. Didn't look like your typical ghost, because typical ghosts are more ephemeral, not transparent, because it's too American, because it was, he said it was more or less like straight Korean. And he's like, "So you're saying the girl is Asian?" That's what the cop said. He's like, "No, dude, she was white." They're trying to ignore them. Like they're trying to be confused about what they're saying to them. I mean, stupid. They're stupid. That's how every horror movie works. The cops don't get there until it's too late. Heavy foreshadowing. Heavy.
Seriously. And when we actually get to the end of this episode, they'll realize how much foreshadowing that is. So basically, we go out and we're in the woods yet again, and we see Dylan with Lee and Audrey, and they're heading to the Polk farm in the hopes to find Monet and some means of escaping this hell. And they come across this pickup truck that's sitting out there, and Wes Bentley, who is Dylan, is saying, "I'm going to go and try and hotwire that truck. I mean, you guys can do a quick, sweep, but as soon as that truck starts, if you're not out there, I'm taking off."
Well, they have a plan.
Tactics on them.
Dylan is going for the truck. Lee is going for the camera, which has the whole everything. When they were captured, it has documentation of everything that was going on. Yeah, and then Audrey is set to go to try to find Monet, because they think maybe she's in there. So that's their plan, and they're saying, on my signal, go. But if you hear that truck start up, you better go for the truck, because we are not going to wait for you. And they're like, 1, 2, 3, go, and everybody scatters. Everybody goes to their
Audrey says, even when that truck starts, we're going to take off. If we're empty-handed or not, we're going to go. Yeah. But, yeah, seriously, no joke. But we know that Lee, her only focus is trying to get that tape, because it has her confession of murdering her husband on it, which means life in prison for her if that falls into the wrong hands. I mean, we can understand why Audrey did it, because Audrey got a tooth yanked out of her head, and she was.
Well, Audrey, at this point, Lee told Audrey, if we don't get this tape into the right hands, they are going to smudge your name. They are going to pretty much ruin you. They're going to ruin your reputation because they are going to twist it in a way to make you look like a murderer and a bad person. And, you know, Audrey is very concerned about her image. Like her fans, her image, her acting career, that is all she has spoken about the entire time. Even in times of peril, the only thing she is worried about is her fans and her image and her career.
Sorry about that. I just had to service a gigantic palmetto bug that was in my studio. So the closest thing I had next to me was my Michael Myers carbon steel knife.
Okay, I'm going to pause so we can catch up then.
We're quite
because
well.
That sounds terrifying. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just fine. I just saw this gigantic cockroach-looking thing come walking across the floor, and where I come from, we call palmetto bugs, what they refer to them in the South, as gigantic fucking cockroaches. So,
well,
the cool
it's
thing
different species. I want to get off on a small rant because I'm sure we have viewers from all over the country, possibly the world one day. That'd be cool. But in the South, in the southeastern part of the United States, there are these horribly monstrous bugs that are everywhere. There's nothing you can do to get rid of them, and they're like this long. I mean, you know what size a normal hand is. They're like this big, and they're giant. They're giant cockroaches, but they're palmetto bugs, and they're everywhere.
They're roughly about the size of a small child's thumb. That's pretty much what they look like. They're
like a small child? Yeah, they're about the size of a small child.
Thumb, not the small child, but anyways. So I'm not quite sure where we left off as I went on my crusade to kill bugs. But
right now, I've got where Audrey just entered the barn, and Miss Audrey, she enters the barn in a hurry and finds Miss Monet.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm right about the point where they are about to escape the barn. They run into brother, daddy, uncle, mommy fucker.
Oh my God. They're the worst.
These are some very, very deranged people. They really are. The Polks are very insane. They're the embodiment of like Deliverance meets like U-turn, no, not U-turn,
Wrong turn?
Yeah, that's the right one. So, but anyways, Audrey manages to free Monet, and they're on the way out, and then all of a sudden we see, you know, Wes Bentley out there trying to hotwire the truck, and all of a sudden we hear a whack, and he spits blood all over in front of him, and then we're right back in the barn again with Audrey and Monet, and we see Ishmael, who is the oldest of the Polk family. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to murder you now." And Audrey's like, "Okay, can you say that again, please?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to murder you slow for killing Mama. She's the glue that held this family together." And Audrey just go ahead.
Yeah. Can you reiterate with that without the crazy, creepy Southern accent? That's the worst accent.
I don't know.
But Ishmael, he's threatening to kill them. Audrey says with the camera, "Can you please say that again?" It's her life insurance policy. That's her safety net. So he says it again, and she shoots him in the face. Can't blame her.
And as they escape, they actually go outside, and they see poor Dylan getting attacked by Lot, the remaining Polk, and he gets stabbed multiple times, and then all of a sudden he sees the torches of the colony coming around the corner, you know, from, you know, about 50, 60 yards away, and he's like, "Ishmael, they're coming. Without Mom, we're screwed." So he runs.
Stop doing that accent. Oh my God, it's so terrible.
So he ends up taking off in the truck, and they're left there. They're trying to pick Dylan up, Audrey and Monet, and he's not moving. He's been beaten to hell and stabbed, and they take off. So our quick commercial break brings us back to Monet and Audrey going back to the Roanoke house. Of all places, this is the only place they can really go.
Yeah, they got to have some kind of cover, so they do retreat back to the house.
This is where things get a little interesting for me, because there's a scene right there where as they're closing up shop, they show a table that is round and kind of angled like so, and it's got a big freaking point sticking out of the middle of it, and it's like a cross, like a crucifix. And I said to myself, you know something? Somebody is going to be impaled on that shit. And I'm telling you, that was a prediction. But
I didn't catch that. Elvis actually said that and pointed it out, because I watched it earlier today and I didn't notice that, but he did. So props to you.
But you see it a couple of times too. They're hearing noises and they look up the staircase, and so they start climbing, and they keep showing the same picture of the same table with that point sticking out of it, which I think is insanely. Okay, that's suggestive. They're really gonna freaking impale somebody on this shit.
They don't waste a shot, do they?
They don't. They don't at all. So as we're getting to the top of the stairs, we're seeing Audrey, and she's weeping and breaking down at this point. And they're trying to figure out what the hell could have happened to Lee, because Lee was with them when they went in, but Monet was the only one that came with them when they went out. You know, minus Wes Bentley, of course. And Audrey is explaining to Monet why they went there to begin with, which was for this camera, and the explanation as to why, you know, Lee said, we need to go back because we'd be implicated, we'd be smeared as murderers. But the real hidden truth behind this, to anybody who's been really watching, knows that the whole reason that Lee wanted to go back there is because she admitted to murdering her husband on that camera. It was in the last episode. But, I mean, she basically thought she was going to die, so she really didn't care who knew what she had done. But
yeah, that was her last-ditch effort that she later regretted.
So as they rewind the tape, Monet and Audrey are both watching this, and they actually see the portion where Lee admits to murdering her husband. And Monet is just like, you know, giving it the I knew it kind of routine. But we see we see flashes to Lee, like Lee actually still out there. She's wounded in like this black and white camera, kind of I don't know. It's a infrared camera where you just see in black and white, and she's struggling, crawling on her belly, and we see this big pig kind of walk in front of the camera, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another figure comes sweeping by, and the pig is gone. And then we hear it like squealing, like the pig is being attacked. So Lee is backing up onto the ground, and she's reeling back, and she looks over, and it's the scat itch. It's the scat itch, and she's basically presenting Lee a heart, saying, surrender to me.
Surrender to me. And if you remember several episodes back, this is whenever Thomason was in the head cage, the Scavenge came up to her and said the same thing. So you have to remember there's more than likely a transfer of power there, because the Scavenge is saving Lee. And if we need pause for just a second, I had maybe a crazy theory. Why would the Scavenge save Lee out of everybody that has died thus far? Why is Lee special? I think maybe, you know, it might not even fucking matter this season, because this is the last episode of...
No, it's not. Second to last.
Yeah, it's the penultimate episode. I had to fix my lighting. But it's the second to last episode. So at this point, we should be done with character development. We should be done with reason. But I'm thinking maybe the Scavenge saved Lee because she admitted that she killed Mason. And when Taissa Farmiga's character Sophie and Milo came upon Lee, she was actually right outside of the site where she killed Mason and burned his body. So maybe does the Scavenge consider that a sacrifice to herself, or the Butcher? Maybe that's why she took, I don't know, maybe that's why she took a liking to Lee. That's the only, I'm trying to make sense, like, why would she spare Lee? The only reason I can think is because she made a sacrifice to her and the Butcher by killing Mason. And then she, of course, presents the pig heart to Lee, and Lee's like, give me that. And she really eats that heart with enthusiasm.
Noms!
Noms! Exactly. Okay, I'm going to play. But that's the only way I can make sense of Lee not being killed by the Butcher or the Scavenge at this point.
Well, we go and we see the Thaisa Farmiga crew and the two others, Milo, Milo, Todd, or whatever the hell their names are, and Sophie. They start journeying through the woods even more, and they take notice of the intense blood moon, which is, of course, in its third and final phase, the bloodiest of them, as we've heard from all the other stories regarding Roanoke. And
the last night, so it's the strongest.
Yeah, that's where they actually do come across the ashes of the pyre where Mason was apparently burned, supposedly, and that's when they take notice of Lee, the actual character, actress, whatever person, Lee, is standing there, and one of the group, they're like, "Oh my God, that's Lee!" And he goes to approach her, and that's where she looks at him, and out of nowhere, she just makes this lunging noise. Their movement, and that's where we hear gurgling and blood splatter, and this poor cat, I think it was Todd, ended up actually getting sliced up. Yeah, got killed. We're talking like Butcher style. Apparently, Lee's got herself a cleaver, and now Thaisa and this other dude are...
Where'd she get that cleaver from?
No idea.
I mean, that's definitely symbolic. I mean, not everybody kills people with a cleaver.
I don't know.
This is after they see the blood moon. They're like, oh, the blood moon. Look how pretty. It's really cool. And then Todd's dead. They're like, hey, we got to get out of here. And they're running, and Sophie turns around. I got to see if she followed us. So they're looking in the woods, and they see the stick figures, like the Blair Witch figures that we've talked about before. It's so tropey, but those are up in the tree, and obviously there was no one around to put those in the tree, and now they know that it's real, and they're freaking out. And I gotta say, I'm not very happy with the direction of a lot of these episodes because it's so shaky, you really can't see what's going on. So that's a little annoying. But eventually, 20 seconds later, they come upon the production headquarters, the trailer where Sydney was keeping an eye on the house with all the cameras, and they see the production trailer, and then all of a sudden you see a guy come running out of the woods, and they think maybe it's Lee, but it's not. It's Dylan. It's Dylan, the pig head guy, Matt, the guy that wore the pig mask. They don't know it's him, so they actually knock him down and run into the trailer and lock the door, and they're looking around trying to say, where are we? And they realize where they are. Poor Dylan. Poor Dylan.
I can't believe that guy's still alive. I mean, he must be a real trooper. I mean, he got attacked by that one Psycho Polk brother lot, and then still managed to wander away and look for help, only to be thought of as one of these psycho people that they've been running into thus far. And
yeah, that's tragic, isn't it?
That's, of course, when...
like, barely missing the people that could help you, and they knock you down because they're afraid. Because I would be afraid. I don't know if I would not. I mean, I wouldn't be openly like, hey, are you okay? After seeing the ghost, seeing Lee, and then they see someone else. I mean, obviously you would only think that they mean to do you harm at that point. So I can't blame them for knocking him down and running into the trailer and locking the door. But then they start to realize there's all these TVs everywhere, and they realize that it's the production headquarters, and they start seeing dead bodies everywhere. They're like, oh, is that Matt? Is that...
They start having those doubts because of all these TVs and where they're actually seeing themselves. And that's where Sophie, Thaisa, Farmiga notices that Audrey and Monet are the only ones left in there, and Lee is actually on the way to them. And they're still stuck in this production crew trailer.
And they don't know what to do. And at this point, I really thought, is there a microphone in there to where they could tap into the house and be like, hey, Monet, Audrey, there's, Lee's coming after you. We saw what she did, but I don't think they would be able to operate the equipment because there's a lot of buttons. Not everyone's good with buttons. I'm not good with buttons, so I understand that. But regardless, they really want to help. So Sophie comes up with the idea, we have to stop her. She loves, she has put so much time and effort, and I feel like she really loves these characters. Let's go save them. They're in there. They might die. Let's go help. And Milo is, are you kidding me? That's the real Lee. She killed Todd. She's going after Audrey and Monet right now. You really want to go after this person and try to stop her. And they're both freaking out. I mean, they've already called the cops. They called the police. The police wouldn't believe them. They hung up on them, which is an actual inconsistency, because anytime you call the police, they legally have to respond to your call. But they're in this place in North Carolina where the Polks actually buy off the police. They give them weed and meth because the Polks grow weed. So they sell them their weed, and the cops look the other way. So no, the cops are in bed with the Polks, so they're not going to come help them. Which is fucking bullshit. Wouldn't that be, that is like the most terrifying thing, to be out in the middle of nowhere and not be able to help yourself, not even with cops at your beck and call.
Well, we actually come back to seeing Audrey and Lee up on the bed upstairs in the Roanoke house, and they're talking about taking the tape to the cops, and they're thinking to themselves, why don't we just do it now? And Monet is actually chatting with her, and all of a sudden they hear this loud crash, and they go to the door, and this is where things get mighty, mighty crazy for Miss Monet and Miss Audrey. They decide to go and open the door like most people would not think to do in most horror scenarios, and wouldn't you know it, there's Lee standing outside the door in like some kind of weird statue-esque catatonic state, and she's just looking up.
Yeah, she's so fixated on something, but what?
And we don't know it, but she's actually holding a cleaver in her right hand, and Monet and Audrey can't see that because it's kind of heading right next to her. And that's where she starts talking like Agnes Thomason, the butcher, like, you shouldn't be here. You're vile. You do not belong in this house. And that's where Monet decides to get really, really ballsy and say, you don't have jack, lady. We know what you are. You're a murderer. And she's just talking shit to her, and out of nowhere, that's when Lee turns. They're upstairs, by the way, and just pushes her over the railing and falls straight down onto that table that looked like a crucifix with a big spike sticking out of the top of it. I told you. I knew it. That table was going to... It was like some kind of Mortal Kombat fatality round. That you interact with. It's like, okay, finish her. He pushes her over the railing, and boom, impalement through the... like, right through the chest. So, Audrey starts running for her life, ends up like knocking Lee over and getting the cleaver out of her hands. She starts running down the stairs. When she gets to the bottom, Lee's like right on her again, about to hit her with the cleaver, and Audrey decides to pick up this like wooden deal that was broken, or some kind of jagged wooden piece, and stick her in the gut with it and run for her life. So, and then we cut back to the remaining three travelers, well, the remaining two travelers of the three, excuse me, that are in the woods, and they're trying like crazy to find the Roanoke house, which I think is strangely stupid, because if they actually know anything about the seasons that they're so obsessed with, they know that being there on the blood moon is probably the stupidest fucking thing you can imagine. So, but they're still running, and they think that they need to get to this house and try and warn Monet and Audrey about Lee being there, but little they know they're far too late. And as we see Sophie, Thaisa Farmiga, look up on the house, I think this is pretty cool. Me, it was a manipulation of the camera work, but her eyes are like straight red. And as she's running. We're go bouncing back between them and Audrey running from the house, and Audrey ends up taking a tumble and running for her life, going to that basement that we saw Dennis O'Hare kind of hanging out in the original Roanoke deal. As she's trying to find, like the apocalypse basement or whatever you want to call it. And as she's going down, Lee stands over her, ends up like burying the cleaver right down into her left shoulder and kicking her down the stairs. And she takes probably a good 20-foot tumble, like straight down. She's still kind of alive. We know that. But Lee kicks the door shut and ends up like stealing her in there. I thought it was going to be like what we saw in Edward Mott back in the day. Remember when he stole all those people in there and ended up dying?
I remember.
Yeah, I made it. So we see Sophie and we see, I don't know why you keep calling him that. I thought it was something a little bit, is it Milo or Milo?
Milo.
Is it Milo? Okay, fine. So Milo and Sophie are hiding, and they all of a sudden see the big group of colonists approaching them with the torches in hand, and they're just hiding for their lives. And they see the colonists coming forward, and they have Wes Bentley, Dylan, what's left of him, in hand. So this lady, the real butcher, comes over, slashes his gut, and starts ripping his freaking intestines out. Like, I'm talking like pulling.
Just like they did with the reenactment. They sliced across the stomach, and they're pulling out the intestines. And if anyone knows anything about human anatomy, there are actually miles of intestines wrapped up in there. And, oh, God, so brutal.
Nasty. So nasty. But anyways,
it's nasty.
We come back from a commercial and we see this. What you're about to see is recovered from an iCloud account registered to Todd Allen Connors. It's presented in its raw form. The images are graphic, violent, and deeply disturbing. And this is where things get really, really, really bad. Apparently, Sophie and Milo were discovered by Lee while she's in her crazy possessed mode, and they're being dragged towards the colonists. And this is where me and Ryan Murphy, we got beef now, motherfucker. Between Evan Peters and Thaisa Farmiga, I love Evan and I love Thaisa. I've missed Thaisa. We haven't seen her in close to 3 years because we haven't had her since Coven. And this is where they're dragged up to Lee in her possessed mode with all the other colonists saying that present yourself for slaughter. Blood must be sanctified to the land. I mean, we're right back to Agnes and her.
Well, she says she is the tree and the lightning that strikes it. And that is what the butcher said earlier whenever she was going to sacrifice someone. They went back to the exact same line. So Milo and Sophie are being presented as sacrifices to the land.
And not only sacrifice, but we're talking like Vlad the Impaler kind of shit. This is fucking horrific. I can't believe they did this, man. This is some really twisted shit. They impaled him straight through the freaking cornhole, right up through their guts, and hung him straight up. We're talking like, man, that was
from the bottom of the spine to the top of the skull. And
that was some rough shit.
There are people online. I was reading about this, and they said that might be a tribute to a horrible movie called Cannibal Holocaust, which I do not recommend you watch unless you are very sadistic and or masochistic. I looked up a screenshot, and I can say that it is very parallel, the impalement of these poor people, very, very parallel. I could actually see it being a tribute to that horrible movie, which I've not seen. I do not recommend that movie. I might have nightmares from that.
Well, we all knew it was going to happen. The foreshadowing from the interrogation room earlier on. The cops are warned. They don't listen. They always show up way too late. We come by the next morning, and the cops show up, and there's these two burned, crispy bodies hanging by posts impaled on the front lawn of this house. They come in and they see Monet impaled on that table that we knew was happening. They find Cuba Gooding Jr. Dominic upstairs, all sliced up from his meeting with Piggy Man. They find Shelby after slicing her own throat with a kitchen knife. I'm sure they probably found Matt in the basement with his head caved in, probably too. And we're talking like serious body count action on this episode. But as they're going outside and they see Dylan with his guts hanging out, they hear something in the bushes, and that's where they actually notice that Lee is tucked in over here. When we last left Lee, she was one of the Roanoke County talking like the butcher Agnes Thomason, whatever we want to call her herself. But now she's just kind of bounced back into reality.
She's almost trying to recover from the state of her possession. She wakes up. She doesn't seem like she knows where she is. She's horrified. The police are, asking her if she knows what's going on, and she lets out a whimper, and then she screams. I would scream. I think everybody else would scream. They're asking her,
burned bodies.
Get up? Can you get to the cop car? Can we help you? And she doesn't have any words. She is like thoroughly traumatized. She says, "Get me out of this hellhole." Like, that is the first time that you might consider her to be aware of what was going on, maybe even being aware of her possession. She says, just get me out of here. So they escort her to the cop car, and you think, okay, well, Lee made it out. Maybe Lee's okay. Maybe she's not possessed anymore. You really don't know at this point.
And that's when we see they start running towards another spot, and apparently Audrey, who got kicked down into the bomb shelter basement there, it wasn't locked, so she managed to escape out of there. She looks up at the cops that come over on top of her, and she's like, "Are you real?" He's like, "Yes, flesh and blood. I'm real." And she ends up coming up and clinging to this guy for dear life just because she knows that she's got some kind of a safety net now after all that craziness happened. And as she's walking towards the cop car, Lee comes out of it, and we know that Audrey saw Lee kill Monet and come after her and slice her with a cleaver in the shoulder.
And she saw the video where she confessed to killing Mason.
Call it off, honey. What'd she do?
God. She looks at her. She says, "You murderer." And the stupidest thing she could have done, she shoots her. She grabs the cop's gun and attempts to shoot Lee. She didn't shoot her. She attempts to. So the cops, they see her as a threat, and they shoot her down at least 5 or 6 shots to the torso, and she's dead. She's dead.
So Lee really is the one that escaped the Roanoke Nightmare. She's the only one that really did. And we all kind of saw it coming in a way. We were all reading it. Well, there's a lot of people that were thinking that it might have been somebody else, but I, in all honesty, thought it was going to be Lee, just because of her cop background and, being as tough as she was so far. But she was kind of deceitful and deceptive when it came to dealing with.
She's had the best character development out of all of them, really.
Maybe they're trying to make this chick part of the new American Horror Story family. Who knows?
I would like that.
She was actually one of the originals in Murder House. She was one of Ben's psychology chicks there.
That's right.
Remember, she was the really, really dull chick.
Mm-hmm. She threatened to kill herself because Ben Harmon wouldn't pay enough attention to her case.
We've also seen her in True Blood, too.
Yep, she was Tara's mom.
Yep, Tara's mom. Exactly.
She'll always be Tara's mom. So, what did you think about this episode? What do you think about this season, really? Because this is our 6th season of American Horror Story. How do you feel about the direction of the show and where it's going?
I'm not pleased, in all honesty. I have not been very, very happy at all with this season at all. I mean, and I know that people are saying that I'm insane because it's finally got some real horror kick to it, and I agree, I really do. But in terms of the American Horror Story universe, I guess you could call it, or whatever it may be, this one really has let me down big time. I mean, and I say it over and over and over again. We got robbed of 3 episodes. We keep getting robbed of like at least 10 minutes worth of episode each episode.
Yeah, there's that. But I think that all seasons and all shows are going to the 10 episodes per season. I think that's going to become the new norm. Not that I agree with that, but I think we might just have to accept that that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, we're hearing these things about shrinking pretty much every TV series down to 10 episodes.
Which also sucks because that is almost limiting. Like, what if you have all these ideas and you want to make something really, really great with the season, but you only have a certain amount of time to do it in because you're limited to 10 episodes. That's not really fair to writers either.
Well, we have to focus on what little we have left with this season of American Horror Story in the hopes that we're really going to get some serious delivery. And my hopes got skyrocketed when I saw the preview for the finale episode and seeing Lana Winters, played by Sarah Paulson, who was one of the major characters from my favorite season of American Horror Story, Asylum, and the new connection that we have again between many of the seasons. I mean, the one good thing that came out of Roanoke was so many combinations that connected so many seasons, which I thought was very strange too, because you would never think with this whole farmhouse ghost story thing that it would really connect with any of the others. But here we go anyways. And I'm really hoping that Lee doesn't actually walk away from this clean. My original theory about the one survivor, I want them to be a person who is ended up getting committed to some kind of an insane asylum or prison, because let's face it, the shit that they had to go through to walk away from that alive is not something you should just walk away from scot-free at all. But I mean, I'm really, really, really hoping that we can get some kind of good delivery on the finale and that it's not only 35 fucking minutes long. And I'm really hoping that Ryan Murphy is not going to let us down big time, because
sometimes I don't think it's really up to Ryan Murphy about how long the show lasts or how long the season lasts. I think that's more of like writers' rights, like something that like almost like a union that they have written into and they want applied to all seasons of TV. Just like a right so they're not overworked. But I agree with you. I would like more for the series because 10 episodes at 40 minutes each, that's 400 minutes per season. And so far this season they have had 0 character development. I do not give 2 shits about anybody on the show, which is vastly opposite to when we watched season 1 or season 2 or season 3, season 4. Season 5 was a little, I liked season 5. I did like season 5 a lot. I didn't give a shit about any of the characters. But the first 4 seasons, you had that character development where you actually really cared if they lived or died. And in this season, I felt like it was very rushed. Like they knew they were rushed and they were just trying to like desperately grasp for something different. Something to entertain the masses who have such short attention spans. Like we have to break it up into 3 separate sections of one season. We can't just have one ongoing story. We have to have 3 separate stories and everybody has to get murdered. We don't have time for character development. We just have to see people die, and we have to see a pig man, and we have to see someone get their face chopped up by a butcher and human sacrifice and some pigs and some pig fetuses. And it seemed like a lot they were trying to put into this, like more action, not character development. And I'm all in for action for a horror story, but for any story, if it's drama or comedy or whatever, I do like to see some character development. I like to feel like I like the characters, because that's what really immortalizes a series or immortalizes a story, is being to just personification with a character, being
Absolutely.
able to relate to a certain character.
I really miss the fact that we did not have enough time to really connect with a lot more of these characters. The problem was with this is that we didn't really have a good chance to connect with any of them, save for the few survivors that came out at the end. And even then, it was a lot of stress that didn't really allow us to connect with them because they were just too scared or yelling or screaming for their lives. But like I said, we're really, really hoping that season 6 is going to end up strong here. And we really look forward to bringing you guys a lot more episodes of The Creep on American Horror Story. We have a few fans out there that have decided to start following us, and we would like to go back and recap some of the previous season episodes. But we have actually been recruited to start looking into Stranger Things, and we really look forward to bringing you some great, great video casts on that. So we'll talk about that more at the end of our next and finale episode of The Creep on American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare. But we really enjoy you guys always tuning in with us. Please leave your comments. Always send them in. We love to hear from our adoring fans. And
also, look up Monkey Caviar on YouTube. They have a lot of other shows that you can watch if you like The Walking Dead. If you like Survivor, they have a couple of podcasts on that. And, Mike, Adam, they're all really great guys. And they dedicate a lot of time to these podcasts. And we're really trying to get it to take off. We have a lot to say, as well as this podcast. If there's any other shows that you would like us to cover, please comment, hit us up on YouTube. There are a lot of really awesome shows coming up. And if I may make a suggestion, I'm looking forward to American Gods. It might be a while, but I'm putting in my 2 cents. I'm putting in dibs for American Gods, because that is going to be one of the best shows, and I want to be first to cover it.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Miss Melody Patton is going to be covering American Gods by Mr. Neil Gaiman when it does come out. We are very much looking forward to it because one of our favorite actors, Mr. Ian McShane, is going to be heading it up as Mr. Wednesday, if my memory serves me correctly.
That is correct. He is Mr. Wednesday.
But anyways, fellow American Horror Story fans, we are going to call it the night. We will look forward to seeing you back here 9 p.m. sharp next week for the finale of American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare. With
finally
me,
over.
Finally over, really? That's
It's finally
horrible.
over.
It's fucking horrible. And I got to wait another 9.5, 10 months to actually see what the hell Ryan Murphy's going to do next year, and hope for the fact that they actually give us 13 fucking episodes at the normal time slot time.
No, they want all shows are going to 10 episodes. All shows.
Yeah.
Even the 30-minute shows are going to 10 episodes. Like South Park, 10 episodes per season. For like the past 4 years, they've done 10 episodes per season. So don't get your hopes up.
Well, that's fucking
Love you,
irritating.
But yeah.
It's fucking irritating. That's all I got to say. But anyways,
Why?
Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. The Elvis Man and Miss Melody. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for the finale episode of The Creep on American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare.
Bye.
Have a nice night, guys.
Thank you for watching.